So one of the things that drew us to this house initially was essentially the kind of untouched character of some of the space. So it's a 1910s row house in Oregon Hill, and the proportions of the house were just amazing. So beautiful tall ceilings, a lot of original trim work, original wood floors throughout, but it really just hadn't been touched in a long time. My husband Owen and I are both designers and architects, so we work for clients doing residential and kind of smaller scale commercial work, but also wanted to use our house as a bit of a laboratory to test out our ideas, live and practice what we preach when we talk about design. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on when we first started was setting an intention of kind of exploring color and doing it in interesting and slightly nuanced ways. And previously in our last house, we kept it fairly neutral. So this was an opportunity to have a little bit of fun and think about color in a different way.
One of the things that really drew us to the house was the amount of the interior that was original to the circa 1910 construction. And one of the exciting features was lighting. While the downside was that we actually had original knob and tube wiring that still hadn't had to be upgraded. The upside was interesting Art Nouveau style fixtures, including the one that currently hangs in our living room. At that time, kind of the very beginning of electric lighting, some fixtures were hybrid. They were wired for both gas and electricity, and that's true of the one that we've retained in the home here. It was in good but rather beaten up shape. It was covered with an old bronze paint that took a long time to remove, but we were able to restore the fixture and rewire it, and actually found some really great historic Cozell shades of the same era, around 1905 or so. But the fixture is I think one of the more unique attributes of the house, and something it brings a real warmth to the space, particularly with those original Art Nouveau style shades.
For this particular project, it had to be very phased because we were living in it throughout the renovation. So we never moved out, and a lot of the work just had to happen kind of like rolling from one space to another. A lot of times when people come into a house, the first thing they want to do is the kitchen. For us, that was actually the very last thing we did. The kitchen looks very different from the original model and design from where we started. There's elements that are the same, there's kind of big moves that are similar, overall aesthetics, but the planning and kind of functionality, we started to really understand and get to know the house more before we took on that big of a project.
So when we decided on working on our kitchen, it probably was really a case of like saving the hardest for last. I think, because the kitchen involves so much infrastructure, it can be a place where you're like really nervous about making the wrong move or making the wrong decision, particularly because of the expense involved. And so we took a long time to finalize a layout for the kitchen. One of the important things we did was actually remove an interior chimney that had been a bump out in the room, and what that did is it enabled us to have a much more rational and functional kitchen layout with a continuous counter and a sink that was kind of centralized in the space. In the interest of trying to balance old and new, we made a decision to locate our refrigerator in a little smaller pantry space just off the main kitchen, because we just didn't really want to have that contemporary appliance highlighted or featured in the middle of what we're hoping would have a little bit more of a circa 1900 character or feel to a kitchen. And of course, our kitchen it's not historic per se, but I think it feels very compatible and appropriate to the age of the house. Some of the things that we did, I'd say, that kind of make it feel appropriate are there's a balance of open shelving that kind of contrasts with the more conventional closed upper cabinet storage, and in a couple places we actually dropped that cabinetry down to the countertop. And we've also created a almost hearth-like feel to the stove and range by building a surround out of a marble tile that has a fluted texture to it, which we really like. These kind of themes of texture or line are something that we try to work through in multiple materials or colors or forms throughout the house.
So whenever we think about renovating a space, there's often the question of, if you are trying to do more of it yourself, what should you hire? What should you take on as a project for doing it on your own? In our case, we are actually probably the complete reverse of any other normal person. There's some things in terms of design that we have really specific standards and quality levels that we're trying to hit that would be enormously expensive to ever find someone that could meet that level. It would be a highly specialized trade.
One of the things we like about our dining room is the lime wash ceiling. The space always had a picture rail about 1.5 feet off the ceiling, and that actually makes a kind of natural division. And we use that to good effect here in this space by choosing a lime wash paint for the area above that and for the ceiling. So it creates kind of special two-tone dynamic to the space.
You'll see a lot of influence between, kind of more classic, simple English kitchens, very kind of utilitarian. You'll start to see some of those influences, but then also layering in some ideas related to Japanese architecture and design, some of the textures that you find in design over there. And you'll start to see some elements like that throughout, as well as kind of Belgian and Scandinavian and French influence. A lot of that's this kind of softness and texture. Finland was being influenced by Alvar and Aino Aalto, designers that, historically have done architecture, interiors, furniture, lighting design, kind of like viewing design as a complete work of art. There was kind of an opportunity that we got to visit his home studio and see some early prototypes of bentwood furniture. And so that started to influence, you'll see in our living room space, this shelf design that we've introduced to open up between the living room and the stair, definitely taking on some bentwood, steamed bentwood. There, we felt a little more confident in tackling it because we had kind of seen firsthand some of the prototyping there.
So we couldn't quite help ourselves when we got to the point of creating a nursery for our young daughter, who's now 2, and we thought when she was a small infant, hey, she'd probably like nothing more than some Art Nouveau ceramic tiles around the fireplace in her room. so what we added them because we felt the room kind of needed a little bit more interest, and they're very era appropriate, and I think related in some ways to some of the small elements of the original house that were actually sort of Art Nouveau, like our light fixture in the downstairs room. So we really enjoy that that added element, although it's maybe taking a little bit of an artistic license because it's something that is embellishing perhaps what would have originally been here, but something that we enjoy. In our upstairs guest bedroom, we actually started out just with a feeling that because it only had one window, it was a little bit dim. We were in the process of re-roofing and replacing our old roof, and we realized this is the best, if not only, opportunity for us to maybe add a skylight. So we did that, and then the process evolved where we realized that rather than just plunking down a little 20 by 20 inch hole in the ceiling, we should really try to do something to celebrate this. So we centered it in the space and wound up creating a very shallow vault to the middle of the room, and then pursued a two-tone ceiling color scheme that kind of highlights the middle zone where the light fills the space. And so it took what was a rather small and kind of static room and actually makes the lighting in there feel quite dynamic and interesting. And I think we also really enjoy, the experience if you're sleeping there at night. You actually get a little bit of moonlight sometimes, and you've got this hanging fixture that kind of centers that space. So it creates maybe a unique experience to the room that we ourselves would not have even kind of thought it would have when we started our journey on the design there. Some people may call it eclectic. I think this mix of historic and contemporary in our own home, one of the things that we enjoy about having that diversity and range of furniture and objects in our interiors is just the way, in a sense, because it's eclectic or represents a broad range, it also feels timeless.